Welcome to White Lily News, everyone. I'm Karen Foster, bringing you the news today. Starting today, we will take our attention to the eastern side of the world, specifically Syria. With the civil war between Syria's government and the rebelling groups intensifying, Iran, Turkey, and Russia meet together to hopefully put an end to this civil war and keep the peace between Syria. One strategy they have is to employ military bases around the country in order to help keep the peace and to keep the balance. Not everyone is convinced with this plan, however. Specifically, there are two issues that seem to be brought up quite a bit. If any of the three powers were to in any way try to silence the rebellion groups, this will not stop them, but this will only make them want to rebel more. Another issue is that the three powers want the Americans to withdraw their forces from the northern side of Syria, the Syrian Kurds, at least to say. However, if the U.S. was to withdraw their forces all from that area, the Syrian Kurds will only have two choices. They could rejoin the Syrian regimes by making a truce, or they could rebel, in which case they'll go against everyone in order to fight for their independence.
Despite the eagerness to declare it having, Syria's war is unlikely to get closer to its end simply because Vladimir Putin, Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Hassan Rouhani are meeting in Ankara this week. Yes, these leaders represent the three largest foreign military forces operating now inside Syria, excluding the U.S., whose commander-in-chief said late last week that America would soon be letting others take care of Syria. But Russia, Turkey and Iran meet without the contribution of the reasonably important factor in this ghastly experiment in human cruelty. Syrians. You can argue that the regime in Damascus will do what Tehran or Moscow tells it to. But the prospect of Russia, Turkey and Iran agreeing what a new status quo inside Syria should look like is a short-term stopgap at best, and one that overlooks the underlying and unresolved causes of the war. The accepted premise of this trilateral solution is that Iran and Russia are content that the regime has full access to the coast and a clear channel all the way to the Iraqi capital Baghdad, through which Tehran can slowly harass Israel and dominate the region, and Moscow can retain an air base in the Mediterranean. Turkey is meant to be happy as its proxies control the area west of the Euphrates rivers along to Idlib, and provide a space for Sunni militants to create their own communities into which millions of Syrian refugees currently in Turkey might return. The unspoken annex to this is that the Americans retain adequate firepower and influence in the northeast for the area to remain a de facto Syria Kurdish enclave for the years to come. Yet already the short-term flaws to this solution are emerging. Ankara has its sights on harassing Manbij, just across to the west of the Euphrates, which is currently held by Syrian Kurds with American backing. And the regime is also eyeing the most populated area in the northwest, where Turkey has large influence, Idlib. It is to Idlib that the Syrian Sunni rebels of Ghouta, Aleppo, and elsewhere have fled, along with tens of thousands of civilians. These are just the short-term problems. The longer-term ones are even harder to solve. Essentially, this supposed trilateral arrangement fails to deal with the underlying demographic and sectarian issues that began the war in the first place. Syria's Sunnis rose up against a predominantly Shia regime in 2012. These Sunnis still lack proper representation or a functional homeland. They are squeezed into a tiny pocket of the northwest, and outside Syria's borders into Turkey and Jordan, with many in Lebanon too. Keeping this disenfranchised, beleaguered and under-resourced population in the rubble, tents and rural flatlands of Idlib won't reduce the influence of extremists in their midst. It will amplify it. There are two things you can count on in the months ahead: that Russia and the regime will bombard Idlib and its thousands of civilians, and that the Sunni rebel militants who take shelter in it will respond as extremely as they can. Both sides will continue to do what they have done before. Secondly, Syria's Kurds, thanks to the near defeat of ISIS in Syria, control an outsized chunk of the northeast now. Everything east of the Euphrates River was not exclusively Kurdish before ISIS and is not entirely so now, but the Syrian Democratic Forces are the unwavering authority there. If the U.S. leaves.
Next, we focus our attention on Arizona. Teachers in the state not only complain about the low salaries that hardly change despite several years of employment, but the quality of the supplies that they're given with and the large class sizes have driven them over the edge. They are demanding a 20% increase to wages as well as an increased education fund to help get new materials and supplies. Of this year, teachers around Arizona, Oklahoma, and Kentucky have been taking peaceful walk-ins before school. At least 1,000 schools around Arizona alone have been starting this trend. They're all wearing red to represent #RedForEd. Next, we take a look at a lawsuit on AT&T by the Justice Department themselves. The Justice Department claims that they are doing this in order to prevent AT&T from purchasing Time Warner for $8 billion, CNN's parent company. They claim that AT&T will be using this opportunity in order to push out all companies and any competition. They specifically state that they're doing this around the time where a merger ends between Comcast and NBC Universal. AT&T declines this, stating that they're only doing this in order to help compete with the competition, specifically companies like Apple, Google, Facebook, and so forth. However, it stands on that topic whether that is true or not. Case being, it looks like the Justice Department is on the good side for this now.
10-second trivia. Which company was founded by Bill Gates? The answer is Microsoft.
Fun fact of the day. Did you know the prisons have a passing trend to pardon turkeys and Thanksgiving? The trend started around Harry Truman's administration and has been carried on to recent years. The last person to do this was President Obama himself. The last two turkeys he pardoned were named Tater and Tot. People hope to see Trump continue this trend, but the last time he was around a bird, it only hatched a meme. We can only hope for the best. I hope my cornucopia of jokes didn't put you in the foul mood today. We wouldn't want that now, would we? We want you to chicken out. I'm Cameron Foster on White Willie News. Have a great day, everyone.